Welcome to Now You Know BC. I'm Bob Kronbauer, also known as BC Bob. And on this show, I introduce you to interesting people, places to go, things to see, things that have happened in the past. You will hear our collective stories. This week, I'm talking all about big things in British Columbia, things that are large. From the remains of a lost pyramid on Okanagan Lake to a secret war train that ran out of Prince Rupert to obviously Mr. PG in Prince George, and more. As my friend, pro skateboarder Alex Chalmers has always said, go big or go home. Let's dig in. Did you know that a man once built an actual pyramid on an island on Okanagan Lake, then took over the Canadian embassy in Lebanon with AK-47s to try and get it back after the BC government basically stole it from him? And after all of this, he was still a free man? It's true. Eddie Haymour bought Rattlesnake Island in the 1970s and decided he was going to build a Middle Eastern theme park on it. Moroccan Shadoo is what he called it. And since there was no zoning on the island at that time, he could build whatever the heck he wanted. He started with a pyramid, then a giant camel that was going to be an ice cream stand where you'd order the ice cream from the head, then out of the back of it was a garbage can where people working from it would throw the trash out of its butt. The trash would fall. He also built an 18-hole mini golf course and was gonna build a submarine ride where people could go under the water and visit Ogopogo, but he was not able to complete his project. The provincial government of the day was not happy that he was trying to do this, so they ultimately ended up throwing him in a mental institute, Riverside in New Westminster, and while he was under duress, they then convinced him to sell the island to them. Then they amalgamated it into a nearby provincial park so he wouldn't be able to build his dream park on it. Nobody would ever be able to build anything on it ever again. After he was released from Riverside, he decided that he was going to go to Beirut, Lebanon with his cousins and hold people hostage at the Canadian embassy. He thought that would be the best way to get his island back. And for some reason, when he returned to Canada, he didn't get put in jail for doing that. Something to do with it being wartime over there, I don't really know. He did not serve any time for that or get arrested. Then he launched a court case against the government, which he won. And he didn't get the island back, but with the money that they had to pay him, he bought a hotel across from the island in Peachland. He built a giant statue of himself on the property, pointing over the water at the island. Eddie is currently retired and living in Edmonton, where he plays a lot of backgammon. The hotel doesn't operate anymore, and the pyramid has been taken down, but there's still remnants of stuff on Rattlesnake Island. Ruins, some might call them. If you want to learn more about Eddie Haymour, you can either read his ex-wife's book, Married to a Terrorist, or watch the feature-length documentary, Eddie's Kingdom, which I co-produced and which offers a couple different sides of this bizarre story. Another wild story that involves guns. One of Canada's best-kept war secrets, the #1 armored train started running between Terrace and Prince Rupert in 1942 and was decommissioned in 1944. 200 soldiers worked on it. It was 8 cars long, 4 of which had massive guns attached to them, and it ran 150 kilometers a day with no real fixed schedule. It would just go back and forth, back and forth. And why did it do that? It was because Prince Rupert was a port that was used by the US military. The army saw it as a potential target. They feared the Japanese troops might attack at the port, then make their way up the Skeena River. The train never engaged in combat, as far as we know. It never fired those massive guns that were on it, but 3 people were killed by it. One was a dude who fell asleep on the tracks and got ran over. 2 others were railway workers, not soldiers, who were doing some work with jackhammers, and they didn't see it coming as jackhammers were too loud. Also World War II related. The livestock barns at the P&E grounds, where you go and see the chickens and the llamas and stuff, that building was converted into a sort of staging area where thousands of Japanese people were brought when the government said anyone who was Japanese couldn't live near or even be near the coast. Men were assigned from there to go to road camps and women and children to ghost town detention camps. These were located in the interior of BC and in the prairies. In the end, more than 21,000 Japanese folks were uprooted from their lives on the West Coast. Many had their land and other property, such as boats, taken away from them, never to be returned. In 2021, the PNE announced that they've committed to turning a portion of the livestock barns where the camp was into what's being called the Japanese-Canadian Interpretive Center to tell this story and others to the people of BC in one of the places that they happened. The idea is to educate people so that we can make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And now you know.